Laser, 240 grain. $10.24. Okay, there's the difference, 984 versus 1024. Okay, I'll let you all do the math. I didn't bring a calculator. Bigger, so quite a difference. Let's shoot a couple of factory rounds. Let's shoot some of these hot. 180 grain, 44. These are loud and fast. And since we have a watermelon here that wants to be disposed of, there's nothing that works better than these. All right, at least in a handgun that I know of. All right, I'm not going to get too close. Oh, there's a water jug too. Came after me. Tell you what, let's try one on that 2 liter. Wow, those things have some blast, some power. Now they're 180 grain. I'm not sure where to hold. I'm going to try on that ram.
240 grain. $1,334. $1,374. $1,392. $1,343. $1,364. Now let's go crunch those numbers. So now how'd we do? Well, with the 357 we got a mean velocity of 1,375, and with the 44 Magnum we got 1,361. That's 14 feet per second less. That's within the variation of 1 round to the next. But remember, the 44 achieves that with a 240 grain bullet compared to a 125. So for energy foot-pounds, we got 987 compared to the 357, giving us 524. That's 463 energy foot-pounds more, and that's a lot more. But it comes with a couple of caveats. One being, in comparing the energy foot-pounds, and even more so the velocity of these 2 rounds, just how much difference you're going to get is going to have a lot to do with ammunition and firearm selection. And secondly, even though it sounds dramatic to say 987 energy foot-pounds, that's 463 pounds more, that's just a number on a page. Let's see if we can come up with a couple of demonstrations to see how much more effectiveness, if any, that number gives us. With our 180 grain projectiles, we saw that the 44 had 314 more energy foot-pounds than the 357 did. But how will that translate into their ability to break these $2 concrete blocks? Well, I'll take the 6-inch barreled revolvers, go back 10 yards, shoot the block on your left with the 357, the block on your right with the 44, and let's see how they compare. Well, that was interesting. Now let me set this up again, and this time I'll shoot the target on your left with the 357 158 grain and the target on your right with the 44 240 grain. So in that iteration, it was 6 shots of 357 Magnum versus 3 shots of 44 Magnum. So it would appear against the target of concrete blocks, those extra energy foot-pounds make a lot of difference. Interesting note, this entire block is fractured. Only gravity is keeping it there. It's completely broken. Now let's try something different. Forgive the redundancy, but for those who haven't seen it before, this is the meat target. And it's got fresh from the grocer pig ears to simulate skin, then pork chop pectorals, pork ribs, a bag of oranges to simulate lung tissue, more pork ribs on the back, 4 layers of t-shirt on the front, 4 layers on the back, and then behind the whole thing is the new and improved high-tech fleece bullet stop. Now in shooting the cinder blocks, I use the 6-inch barreled revolvers, but to shoot the meat target, I'll go back 7 yards and use the Security 6 with its 4-inch barrel, and I've got it loaded with the Sig Sauer Elite Performance 357 Magnum 125 grain jacketed hollow point. Let's see how this does. So how'd we do? Well, did a little bit of damage to our pork chop pectoral, a couple of really impressive holes through the ribs on the front, just mangled our orange lung tissue, and where the bullets hit the ribs on the back, broke them. Now what's really typical when we shoot the meat target with hollow point ammunition is the bullets will be stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target. In this case they weren't. A couple of the projectiles made it through to about the 3rd layer of fleece, and a couple made it through to about the 10th layer of fleece. So this Sig Sauer Elite Performance 357 ammunition ballistically was not that impressive, but its damage to the meat target is. Now let me show you a close-up of what the projectiles look like. And there they are. And the mushrooming is extensive, and one of them lost its jacket. Now we've got a new meat target set up, and I'll shoot from 7 yards with the Ruger Red Hawk 44 Magnum with its 7.5-inch barrel and our Sig Sauer Elite Performance 240 grain jacketed hollow point. So how'd we do? Well, with the 44 Magnum only fired 3 rounds, one of which you saw just skim the top of the target, so it did not contribute in any meaningful way to the damage to the target. But of the 2 rounds that hit centered, you can see some pretty impressive impact holes in our ribs on the front. Our orange lung tissue is just thrashed. And there are bits of copper jacket and lead fragments scattered all throughout the target and all throughout the fleece bullet stop. And of the 2 bullets that did hit center mass, instead of like the 357 being stopped by the 2nd to 10th layer of fleece, these both went through to about the 20th layer of fleece. And in my subjective view, looking at this target, I'm saying that 2 rounds of 44 Magnum did about as much damage as the 4 rounds of 357 did. Now let me show you a close-up of the projectiles. And there's our 2 44 Magnum projectiles, and they are mushroomed extensively. Now the meat target is made as a simulation for an assailant that you're going to shoot in the chest. And I think it's good for demonstrative purposes for typical concealed calibers like 380 ACP, 9x19, 38 Special, 40 Smith & Wesson, etc. But when it comes to 357 and 44 Magnums, although some people do use them for personal protection, some people use them for hunting. And with that in mind, we're going to shoot the deer meat target. Now what this is 2 layers of leather jacket to simulate skin,